called Art Gizmos that are really worth buying, that are worth the price. Unusual things, things that you might not be sure if this or that or this or that are really worth the price. And that was a lot of fun. People seem to enjoy my tour of our local Jerry's Artorama. Another video that I'm likely to do sometime is art gizmos that you should buy not in an art store. That would be very much worth doing, and this is one of them. So these have acrylic paints in them, fluid, liquid acrylics with about 50% medium. People ask me all the time, what is the ratio of medium to paint? And the answer is it completely depends on the brand of acrylics that you're using. So this was Lucas fluid acrylic, so already a fairly low pigment saturation in this brand, and therefore only needs about 50% medium. And what medium? My favorite is GAC 100, but Liquitex gloss medium and varnish is fine. Sometimes Jerry's store brand is fine. Okay, let's talk about today's project, which is doing a painting of the White House in winter. Kind of a double meaning to that word. It's about 38 degrees outside right now and not a good day. Still getting over this, whatever it is, cold, cough. So I'm not going to go out and do plein air painting today either. But so it's winter time, and I'm going to do a painting of the White House in winter. I have two references that I'm going by. This is the first one. It's a delightful photograph, and forgive me, whoever the photographer is, I wish I knew. I went on Google, and again, I've said this before, but let me repeat myself. For you artists, go do a Google search for images on your computer. I'm not sure it works on the phone. Doesn't work on my phone. And under one of the tabs under images is advanced. Click advanced. In that row of tabs is copyright usage, so on. I'm not sure what the verbiage is. I'm not getting the verbiage right, but there are some images on the internet that the photographer has released to be, you can reproduce it, and this is one of those. Although I sure wish I knew who the photographer was. It's a beautiful photograph of the White House. But I'm actually going today by two references. One, again, is this nice image that I just printed off of my printer and then laminated in plastic. It pops the colors, and of course it protects it from me spattering paint all over it and so on. And oh, good, Adrian, I'm glad to hear it does work on your phone. Thank you for that tip. Wonderful, thank you. And then here's the other image that I'm working from. This is a little tiny color sketch that I did from the photograph. I did that a couple weeks ago. So when I do this painting today, I've got two images taped up in front of me, and they will both be influencing what I do. Now, I already know that in some ways this composition works for me a little bit better, where the White House is a little bit higher and to the right, rather than in the photograph where the White House is lower and centered. Things like that. This also has more color in it that I think I like. I love this photograph, but it wouldn't make as good a painting perhaps if it was that muted. So this gives me some color ideas. Okay, let's get started painting. The first thing I'm going to do, and if you're one of my regulars, howdy to you, hello to you, and what I'm about to do won't surprise you a bit, but if you're a newcomer, what I'm about to do will be quite the surprise. I'm going to start, first of all, with large brushes. Thank you, Adrian. Good. I hope the rest of you are seeing that color bar. Go to the far left. Thank you for helping my viewers with that tip. Appreciate it. Okay, I'm starting with these large brushes, and I'm going, by the way, this will be an oil painting when I'm done, but I start in acrylics and finish in oil. The first thing I'm going to do is a large abstract swoosh, large abstract marks that provide a counterfoil. I need to come up with a better word than counterfoil because most people don't know what that means. A juxtaposition, an opposite of what is in the photograph or what's going to be in the painting. And it's usually colors contrary to the final paint. I feel, and this is very subjective, very, very, very subjective, but for some reason I feel like doing purple with a little bit of magenta here And the image, the shape I'm looking for, ooh, that was nice. That's pretty dark, isn't it? Actually, darker than I expected, but I'm okay with it. I'm going to mix some more water in with that and just soften part of it. Maybe get a little bit of dripping going on. Okay, now you, my regulars, you all know your job, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to yell at me and to try to keep me from obliterating that beautiful abstract image whilst I do a painting of the White House on top of it. Is that clear? Clear as mud? I want to I want to keep. Why? Well, partly simply because this is so beautiful. I mean, if you can't see the beauty in this, then the little child in you has just died, and we need a resurrection here on the spot. We need to get the child in you alive. Your eyes should just be. I know it's a lot more beautiful to me than it is to you because I'm looking at the real thing, but it's just beautiful, beautiful texture, beautiful graduations, beautiful all kinds of stuff. Okay, now one of the reasons I started painting this way is because I'm playing mental games with myself. We're allowed to do that. In fact, it's a good idea to do that. And I'm in a sense toying with myself and say, okay, Nelson, okay, smarty pants Nelson, listen to this. Remember, you are not doing a picture. You are doing, and I mispronounced the word on purpose, Pitchur, or pictures, Pitchurz. Um, I am doing a painting, not a picture. Okay, so while that, if I had all the time in the world, I would just pause and get my hair dryer out. I would just let this purple swoosh, this abstract, I would let it dry. But I don't have all the time in the world, so this is pretty typical. While I'm waiting for it to dry, I can come in here and draw on top of the swoosh without violating it. I'm not obliterating it. I'm just cutting into it with skinny lines. So I get to retain the purple swoosh and yet begin drawing the White House at the same time. Now, again, last week or 2 weeks ago, I did. It wasn't last week. It was a couple weeks ago at least. I did a painting of the Statue of Liberty. You might say, well, what's with all the patriotic stuff all of a sudden? The answer is I don't really know. Just looks like fun. I went online, looked for images to paint. So when I say I want to do images, this is not like me, by the way. This is not like what I've done most of my life. I don't usually do recognizable things. I just do. I'm more abstract in my subject matter. But it's an intentional decision here in the last couple of weeks to do recognizable icons. Now, not all of them are American. In fact, I pulled up several. A view of Trafalgar Square, a view of several scenes, a couple scenes in Canada, one Amsterdam bridge. I limited it to places that I have been, things that I have seen myself. Anyway, so here I am doing recognizable images, and I'm not preaching any kind of sermon or message with my artwork. I found a beautiful photograph, and I'm going to hope to do a good painting of it. But it is intentional. What is intentional is that it is a recognizable icon, if you will, or a recognizable image, just like the Statue of Liberty a couple weeks ago was a recognizable image, familiar image. I'm drawing very carefully, aren't I? A little bit too carefully, making me a little bit nervous. I'm making myself a little bit nervous. The reason is because when you draw this carefully, I'm sort of stuck now. I'm going to keep on, but when you draw this carefully, this fastidious, I like that word, this fastidiously, you tend to emotionally lock yourself in to the lines. And I talk often about how it's not a good idea. Do not lock in to your early lines. But I'm gonna be talking to myself the whole time, saying, okay, don't next time I do the drawing, I don't necessarily trust or believe in, rely on the marks that I'm making right now. Okay, I could move the whole lighthouse up, right, down, left, center, whatever I choose to do in the minutes to come, and that would be all right. So I give myself permission. That's, again, one of the biggest differences I find between excellent painters, drawers and painters, and beginners is that beginners tend to put down lines and then trust them, believe in them, count on them, rely on them, put their weight on them. All of those are mistakes. So I'm going to try not to put my weight on these. At the same time, I'm I'm doing, as you can tell, I'm doing my best to try to do an accurate drawing. Now, one of the things I've had to shorten the flag to get it in the painting because I don't. The flag really should be up here, according to that photograph, but I don't. I want the flag in the painting, so I've shortened that. Oh, at the same time, I've made that chimney taller than it should be, so I just shortened it now. Okay, that's basically where the where the White House goes. Let me switch to some little bit larger brushes. Here we go. To render some of the foliage, the trees. By the way, I'm assuming you all know that you acrylic painters that you do not want to leave your brushes, especially if they're good silver Rhapsody brushes. You do not want to leave them in water. One of the worst things you can do for your brushes is leave them sitting in water. Students, I find, doing it all the time because the water soaks into the wood expands, stretches the ferrule, and the brush is largely ruined from 10 minutes of sitting in water. So be aware of that. Okay, let's do some of these trees, and I want to start these fairly abstract because I really don't want to lock in here, and I want to be able to blob in large areas. Whoops, now let's be careful. I don't want to obliterate. I do not want to obliterate my purple, abstract purple too much. So let's be very, very light-handed. Be sure to let it continue to show through the image. In fact, I'm going to pick up another brush, see if I can wet this down. Nope, it's still just picking up the purple that wasn't dry yet. Good enough, but I want this more abstract down here. Changing my mind. I drew a tree and then decided. I drew a blob for a tree and decided it was getting too much attention. Now, great big tree over here. And a bush down here in this corner. I definitely want this to be a wintertime snow scene. So at the moment, I'm thinking of it as seeing it as a cool image, cool blue image. Paint around the edges so I don't have to put a frame on these things. Okay, that's good enough for a start. I'm going to take a little break right here. I'm going to pick up my hair dryer and dry this, and I'll be back in just a minute. Thanks, you guys, for watching. All right, we're back. I've got that. Hello, Bobo. Good to see you again. And I'm ready to go with the next layer on this loose, hopefully, but accurate painting of the White House here in the United States. I probably don't need to tell anybody where the White House is, do I? Even if you're from another country, you've probably heard of it. We've heard of Buckingham Palace and a whole bunch of other things. So I'm assuming you know what right now I'm doing a phthalo blue, a generous splatter of local color, because I think that's the overall tone that I want this painting to have. My sketch, which I showed you earlier, is the watercolor sketch that I did a couple weeks ago. And look, I've spattered paint on it already. Rats, I should have put that in plastic. And if I've spattered paint there, that means I've spattered paint on everything, doesn't it? Yikes. Okay. I hope there wasn't anything precious up there. One of the, if you're painting, imitating my style in any way or being influenced by it, one of the general rules of thumb is that with each layer you paint a little bit less. You paint fewer square inches. And so I don't want to do as much, cover as much area with this as I did with the initial purple. Okay, that's good enough. Now I think I can go straight to white. No, I tell you what. No. Let's do this. Let's do some drawing and make some refinements and corrections. Okay, now here's what I mean about don't rely, put your weight down, trust, don't believe the earlier marks you put down. Anything the artist continues to use his or her judgment. I'm looking at the photograph up there and moving things. Now, it looks to me like I got this pretty accurate, lucky for me. But I'm not sure. So let's get started. And I'm going to be drawing with pencils. Again, the pencils I'm using are made by Jerry's Artorama, and they are called Jumbo Jet Black. I've had a couple people message me recently and say, "Ooh, I find that when I the black pencils smear in the acrylic stage." Well, they actually smear in both acrylics. Hello, Julian. Yes, what do I use? Oh yeah, the Barrel Prismacolor markers. Oh my goodness. Yes, back when I was an illustrator, back in the day, and I still do illustrations occasionally. I certainly used a lot of markers doing storyboards. Compson storyboards was one of my favorite jobs as an illustrator. Nope, I don't use them much anymore. Very rarely, but there they sit, reminding me of some good old days. And actually, I'd much rather be doing what I'm doing today than what I did in the good old days. But okay, so far I'm believing I'm looking at the photograph, and I say, no, that line was pretty accurate. Wow, that was pretty good. Okay, let me mention that some of you have said when I use the pencil, it smears in the acrylic. And it does, absolutely it does. You have to, so a couple things. One, you use the smearing quality to your advantage. In a way, you don't pretend that it's not smearing. You acknowledge that the acrylic, to some degree, is going to pick up the black pencil lines and smear them a little bit. So don't pretend that it's not. You paint with your eyes. Believe what your eyes are telling you. Having said that, I think there are two things that probably might be working against some of you that I'm doing the right way, and you need to imitate me. And that is, first of all, I'm making fairly, can I zoom in any tighter? A little bit. I'm making fairly discrete lines. They're fairly fine. And one thing I'm not doing, let me zoom up for this. Let me see if I did this the other day, but let me do it again. One of the things some of you, forgive me for casting dispersions on your drawing ability, but some of you are in the habit, just like many painters, beginner painters, they do what I call brushy, brushy, brushy with their brushes. So some drawers who aren't very experienced do scratchy, scratchy, scratchy. So let's say you're drawing those pillars up there because you're really not sure where to put the line. Some people will do something like this: scratchy, 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 multiple, multiple, multiple lines like that. That is, what's the universal no sign there? That is verboten. No, do not paint in, or do not draw in that manner. Um, that's part of the reason some of you are getting so much uh, of the gray picked up in when you do the acrylic. So some of you, not all of you by any means. I don't mean you're all doing that, but I've seen enough student drawers to know that that's probably what some of you are doing. Um, the other thing is, and I'll demonstrate this later, when I come back and do an acrylic glaze on top of this, you will also notice that I'm going to do very little brushy, brushy, brushy. That's what will make this gray come up and get lively uh, and make the pencils will get live re initiated, re-wetted anyway. What's the word? And smear anyway. Cause the gray haze is the way you're putting on the uh, subsequent acrylic layer. So be careful about that. So two things: put the pencil on light, and number two, put the acrylic on. Oh, that's to represent the balustrade up there. And put the acrylic on. Just slap it on and leave it. Don't brush it around. Besides that, yes, you're still going to get some bleeding of the black pencils. And then at that point, use the bleeding, control the bleeding, move it, make it behave for you, make it do what you want it to do. Don't pretend that it's not bleeding. It is, but you just have to. It's like here's an analogy to that. Um, when people are just getting started in watercolors, I remember as a young man, this drove me crazy. You'd put down one watercolor and then put down another one, and there would be edges. You could see the edge of the brushstroke, right? And that bothered me because as a kid, I didn't want those edges there. I wanted it to be smooth, like airbrush. And I could never, well, you can do it if you work really hard, but anyway, you can't get that seamless. So what a good watercolor painter does is, oh yeah, there's all kinds of seams, if you will, edges of brushstrokes in a good watercolor painter's. And here again, I'm talking about abstract realism, not the hyper realists. There are a lot of those too, but a good painterly watercolor painter uses the edges of the brushstroke to their advantage. They don't pretend they're not there; they use them. I'm happy to say I did some watercolor portraits several years ago. I don't know what happened to me. I seem to exceed my own capabilities, and I did some very nice watercolor paintings of a boy and a girl that had lots of edges, right, going right across their faces, but it looked great. I hope you know what I mean. Use the edges. Don't pretend they're not there. Uh, and that's what I mean about using the bleeding of the pencils. Don't pretend that it's not bleeding. Just use it. You make it bleed in an artistic, interesting way. Whew, okay, I know I'm rambling. Let me rein it in a little bit. Honestly, I'm a little bit surprised here today. I'm not giving you a good example of distrusting your initial drawing because in fact I am trusting my initial drawing quite a bit. Not because I trust it, but because wow, I must have had my wits about me or something because I'm finding it quite accurate. So I'm not giving you a good example of what I was talking about earlier about changing your mind. I do that many other times. I'll stick with me. You will see me change my mind many times in subsequent drawings. Okay, now one advantage of taking several minutes to do that pencil line is that the blue that I put on just a few minutes ago has had time to dry. So now I can come in with some white, opaque white. By the way, and if you, there's no medium in this. That would just be a waste. You don't want misty, foggy white. You want white. So don't put medium in your white acrylic. That's just straight out of the bottle. Okay, time to do some white stuff. This is always, I enjoy every phase, every stage of the painting process. But for some reason, this very first layer of white is always a favorite of mine. Don't know why exactly, but it's just fun. My eyes like it. I also find that now, again, for those of you who just turned in, perhaps, that's the photograph that I'm working from. And this over here is my ear. Let me get my ear out of the way. There. This right here is a little thumbnail sketch that I'm working from. So I've got two references today. I'm looking at both of them, especially for accuracy. I'm looking at the photograph, and for composition and color, I'm looking at the watercolor sketch. I've said this so many times, but I'll say it again. The essence of doing a good painting, the act of painting, the essence of painting is making interesting marks, making pleasant marks. I have been teaching that for years, and I've learned that just saying that doesn't make it so, because many people don't have the savvy. I don't know how to say that. They don't have the intuition of what is an interesting mark. So you're going to have to make a lifetime study of what marks are interesting and what ones are not. The most consistent definition of interesting marks is variety. I want to do a little, I don't usually do a palette knife at this stage, but right now I do. I want a hard edge right there. And I want a hard edge right there. Let me zoom in here real quick as I talk about interesting marks. Just for a second, I already finished this little triangle. There's a name for that, and I forget what it is. Oh, there's a drawing mistake. Okay, good. Right there, it was leaning this way. I've got to make it go this way. So that's there. When you see a mistake, you draw the correction, but you don't try to erase the error. That's a key thing. Okay, but let me talk about this little triangle, because many of you, here's the impulse you need to fight against. And it's important for you to see my face, because I use the term tongue painting. Everybody knows what tongue painting is. It's when you go like this. Here's my canvas. Okay. Did you get it? That's tongue painting. And tongue painting is bad painting. Boo, boo, tongue painting. That's tight, uncreative, control-freaky painting. Almost everybody that you know says, I want to be a looser painter. Well, then, to be a better painter, you have to get rid of all tongue painting. The only time I do tongue painting on a painting, most of the time, is when I'm signing my name. In fact, that's usually the only time I hold a brush with this grip, with this death control grip right here. All the rest of the time, I'm painting with the side of the brush, holding it loosely. And allowing the brush to dance across the canvas, leaving little bits of paint that are interesting. Now, part of the reason I'm breaking this up is there's going to be a little tree in front of part of this here, so that's why it's broken up. But back to the triangle up here, you see the tendency would be to grip the painting like the brush like this, stick out your tongue, and color in the lines. color, 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 swooshy, brushy, 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 brushy. All a very, very bad impulse. Do not do that. So I'm drawing two pillars here, and yet I've used one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, 9 different or 10 different strokes to do. Again, a lesser painter, forgive me for saying it that way, but a lesser painter would take their brush and go, that's the sound effect. And very, very bad impulse. Resist that. Now, I'm going to make one very definite change in this photograph. Um, as you can see from the photograph, I know you can barely see it up there. Um, there is no sun shadow, but I'm going to modify that a little bit in my painting because when you do that, it looks okay in a photograph, but when you do a painting that has no sunlight, um, the viewers don't believe you. They say, and you might say, no, but it was a great day. And they go, I don't think so. I think you just screwed up. They don't say it out loud. That's what their subconscious says about what you did. So I'm going to make a line of shadow that comes very subtle. I still want it to be a gray-ish day, but with a little bit more direct sunlight than the photograph has. I hope you can see why I might say that doing this layer of white is so much fun. It just is. It begins to pop. The painting, the image just begins to pop when you start doing values. And the reason is because, of course, the most important aspect of a painting is play of light. And so when you begin playing with light, then the painting begins to come to life. Let me point out something very important, and I'm sort of saying this because I want to hear myself say it because I don't want to mess up here. This part of the painting that I'm doing right now, the White House, is of course the focal point. In fact, this right here is the focal point, real obvious in this. So I started there. If I were to continue this degree of detail all the way out to the edges of the canvas, it would instantly become a bad painting. And so I'm going to start, fading out, if you will, fading out the amount of detail that I'm doing. The further I get from that focal point right there, the less detail I want. I need a bigger brush in my hand right at the moment, but I don't want to switch. I don't take the time to switch and get a bigger brush. I'm just going to soldier on. No offense to all you soldiers. Okay, a little bit of light now here in the sky. I'm squinting my eyes. In fact, let me stop squinting and take my glasses off. Save squinting. There is not a lot, but there's some slight advantage to, is it called presbyopia? I think it is. I think that's right. Elder eyes. Um, to when you get older, you tend to get farsighted. At least if you had good eyesight as a young person, you tend to get farsighted. And there is some advantage to going slightly blind. You don't have to squint anymore. And one of my steps for painting looser only pertains to people that need to wear glasses, and that is if you want to paint looser, take off your glasses. It really does save squinting. I remember in college studying the lives of, Rembrandt and all these old medieval or Renaissance painters, and noticing that as they got older, their paintings got a lot looser. And as a smart aleck young kid, I said, "Yeah, that's because their eyes were going bad." Now that I am my age, I go, "Yeah, that's because their eyes were going bad." So I think my guess was exactly correct. There's one really sweet detail in this photograph. The only thing that could possibly give away that I used this particular photographer's work, and that is that there's one light in the corner bedroom. I have no idea if it's a bedroom, but one light on up here in the White House, and I am definitely going to reflect that in my painting. So those two blotches of light um, are going to be warm yellow later in the process. Remember, when you're doing this white, don't let the fact that I'm doing a snow scene or the White House, that's not why I'm painting with white. I'm painting things that are light. That's light with an L. Don't limit yourself to just things that are white. Paint things that are light. And again, because I'm doing a snow scene of the White House, it sounds like a joke, doesn't it? It could be, polar bear in the old, blank canvas, polar bear in a snowstorm. Well, White House in the snow could be the same thing, couldn't it? It could be just one completely white canvas. Of course, that would be a wrong impulse. Yes, thank you very much. I have some confusion here. So far, I haven't had any trouble with my white paint, except for maybe right there, with my white paint picking up the gray, the pencil, and making it gray. Uh, and if it is right there, I just come back with a little bit more white and cover that up, and now I'm perfectly happy. In fact, I like the two-tone effect that's happening right there. Does that make sense? We were talking earlier about the fact that your acrylic paint picks up the black pencil. Just make it work for you. Like that, that's lovely. That's better than it would have been if it hadn't picked up the black pencil. Okay, I think I am done with that. Now, before we go, I'm going to take a quick little break. Before I go, yeah, let me show you a quick trick. This is a time-sensitive trick. You have to do this at the right time or it won't work. And I might be a little bit late here, but I'm going to take this brush is just damp chip brush, and run it through, yeah, some of this white stuff. So I'm doing two things. I'm creating interesting energy on the canvas, and I'm also spreading out any little piles of white acrylic. You know what I mean by piles, right? Like at the end of the stroke, stuff that's really thick and would take too long to dry. I have just used those little piles to create some interesting energetic strokes on the canvas. Okay, quick break. I'll be back in just a few minutes. Hey, hello, welcome back. Thank you for waiting for that little break. Well, I surprised myself when I left you 10 minutes ago. I thought I was going to be back doing more acrylics, but I stood back and looked at it and said, oh, wait a minute. I could do more acrylics, but no, I really don't need to. I've decided to go straight to oils. So I cleaned up all my acrylics, got my oil paints out. It dawned on me too that maybe I should mention something about this easel before I proceed. Let me take a minute and give you a quick tour. By the way, if you were with me yesterday for art gizmos that are worth the price, I was at an art supply store here in Raleigh, Jerry's Artorama, and one of the things I said is I talked about easels very briefly, and said that the H easel is, in my opinion, the best bang for your buck. Usually, that is, It's the most versatile and useful and so on and so forth. There are many different kinds of H easels. Obviously, so named because that's the overall shape of the easel, is the letter, capital letter H. And this is just one brand. This has a name. It's called the Carolina. Well, how about that? Somebody must have designed this in honor of the home state of Jerry's Artorama, which is North Carolina. But I want to show you a couple things before I go on. Most of it is store-bought, but for the last 12 years at least, I have almost never bought a store-bought easel that I didn't modify considerably. This one I just modified a little bit, but you might be wondering, well, I don't have an easel that holds stuff like this. Well, I don't either. I had to make it myself. Let me zoom in and just show you real quickly without taking too much time what I did here. These two boards right here, this right here and this, just a piece of quarter round from any building supply store, I added to the easel. I measured, I cut. Now it helps that I have power tools and so forth to do this kind of thing, of course, and glued them in there. And did I nail them? No, I think I just glued these. I also took a piece of, you can't see it, but there's a board hanging out here that goes all the way across, sticks out both ends. Let me show you this end down here. See this right here? I put a screw in it, put a hook on it. That's for hanging whatever I want to hang. At the moment, it's a rag. I added that myself. Now, this piece right here, the first thing I showed you here in the middle, right there, serves one very, very particular function. There's a gap there, you see, and the reason there's two boards is actually an L-shaped gap. So there's a gap that goes like this and then goes up. And forgive me if you're not understanding that. Then I took several clipboards, and with a hot glue gun, I just ran a little bead of hot glue along the edge of the clipboard. You see that? And what that lets me do, it lets me stick it under there, and that hot glue catches the edge, that little L-shaped groove. So I can set, what I did a while ago is I had my acrylic sitting on there. Now I have an oil palette that I came with my Soltec easel. Not my favorite kind of palette at all. Impossible to clean well. Be that as it may, same exact trick. Ran a bead of a hot glue there so I can stick it in there. I have to be careful about where I put my paint. And that's actually hooked underneath that little lip. So I can hang a bucket over here on the right, as you can see. And that's, I think, most of the adaptation. So that took me half an afternoon. After I got home with my new easel, I went straight with my new easel to my garage workshop and did a number of modifications before I even brought the easel up to my upstairs studio. I'm a very blessed man. I actually have two studios in my house, upstairs and downstairs. That's a long story. I'll just admit that I'm a very lucky guy and a very understanding and cooperative wife. Okay, ready to go with oils. Now, again, most of you know this already. I'm using Liquin Original. It sits on your palette. You don't need a cup because it just sits right there and doesn't run away. That's why I like the gel. So I'm going to use that to do a glaze on this painting. Now, what colors? And I'm asking, this is a question, a real question I'm asking in real time. It's not a rhetorical question. Looking at my watercolor sketch over there to the right. Very, very cool. Let me talk to you just for a second because I really don't know what color I'm going to do this, but I will tell you, most of the time when I'm doing glaze here, this is a very cool painting, right? Most of the time when I do the oil glaze, I go opposite temperature. If it's a warm painting, I do cool glaze. If it's a cool painting, I do warm glaze. That's what I do most of the time. I still have a very strong inclination to do that. except that I really want this to be a cool painting, I think. So here's what I'm going to do. I've made up my mind. I'm going to, so I've got chip brushes, my favorite brush, as you probably know. By the way, all these paints have been uh, in my freezer in this exact state. Well, I just cleaned up before I turned the camera back on. These have been in the freezer for about a week. I think it was a week ago was the last time, maybe more, the last time I used them, and they're all still perfectly good. So I hope you know that trick about putting paints in the freezer. If you're going to put paints in the freezer to stay for months, just put several layers of saran wrap over it, and they'll last. I had some paints last 2 years one time with saran wrap in the freezer. Okay, ready to go. This is ultramarine, a fairly light pale glaze of ultramarine. Here's what I'm thinking of doing, by the way. I'm going to do ultramarine and probably a little bit of phthalo blue over the entire canvas, probably. And then I'm not sure, I think I'm going to come back and do some warm stuff on top of my, on top of the cool glazes. And by the way, forgive me here. I know I keep touching my nose, which is very unprofessional. Forgive me. It's driving me crazy. I've got some hair. Yeah, I've got just the very tail end of a cold going on, and it's one of the things that's going on is something in my nose is bothering me. So I'm saying that because I might be driving some of you crazy. Leave your nose alone. I'm trying, man. I'm trying so hard. Okay. TMI, everybody's saying too much information. Mr. Dan, please do not talk about your nose. I'm sorry, man. Okay, let's do a little bit of phthalo. Now, you remember, a little phthalo goes a long way, right? Yeah. So be careful with phthalo. Don't hate it. Like I run into some people don't like it. It's like, whoa, what are you talking about? It's one of the best colors in the world. You just have to be careful. It's a staining color. It's more like a dye than a paint, or has dye-like properties. But I don't use cobalt blue because I don't want to mess around with the possibility that they're toxic. I just don't want to even give it that chance. But I have found, and for years, I use nothing but phthalo and ultramarine. And if you, I've done this test before. If you mix a good phthalo and a good ultramarine together, you can fake a cobalt. And I've had students that couldn't tell which is the real cobalt and which is my mixture, and they couldn't tell. Now, I'm sure your professional paint maker could tell, but it was good enough that it could fool a room full of students. So that's good enough for me. I think now, before I do anything, I'm just going to go ahead and do some rag painting. And then we'll decide, we will, won't we? We, the rhetorical we, then we will decide if we want to do any warm glazing on top of this. I'm not sure. I really don't know. Let's just take it one step at a time. I love it when sometimes people say they want to be nice, so they'll look at a finished painting and say, oh, and to think all of that was in your mind before you started. And if I'm in a nice mood, I just nod and smile and say, yeah. If I'm in a teacherly mood, I go, what are you talking about? No way. No way, no way, no way. This is an uncovering, a discovery process for the artist. It's not all in my head. Anyway. Yeah. Now, I think I like this phthalo down here, but I think I can make it much lighter so that I have a light shaft of light essentially coming through the center of the painting. Many times when I do this initial glaze, oil glaze, is many times that's when the painting begins to look like a painting, not like a picture. It goes beyond pretty picture and becomes a painting because it impacts the values so much. And values is the most important aspect of a painting. Or a little while ago, I usually call it play of light, but that's values, right? Play of light is in the values category. And play of light or values is the most important aspect of a painting. Don't be confused. The essence of doing painting, the verb, doing the act of painting, the essence of doing painting is making interesting marks. But the most important aspect of a physical noun painting is play of light. Okay, what do you think? Do I need any warm glazes in that or not? It looks pretty good just as is. It's not very courageous, however. I may regret what I'm about to do, but I'm going to try to be a little bit more courageous by adding some warm stuff. So I'm picking up oxide red down here. Oxide red, of course, is not a red. It's very much like burnt sienna. It's an orange brown, orange-ish brown. And I'm going to add a little bit of Indian yellow to that. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm being a little bit of a scaredy cat because I like what's happening here. So I'm going to take this mixture that I just put on there and just going to diminish it a little bit. Okay, back to the painting. There is a hint of warmth in the photograph down here where some of the incandescent lighting or maybe spotlights or something is hitting the building right there. And it looks kind of nice in the photograph. So I'm thinking, well, maybe if I take now, and there is this, I want to warm this up a little bit with some Scarlet Lake, I think it is, a little bit of red. There's these bedroom windows up here that are definitely glowing. That was okay. Okay, it's working. Happy day. I'm not ruining the painting. Adding this little bit of warmth to the painting is adding variety. Generally speaking, if you're a painter, generally speaking, this is like a breakable law of painting. You want more color, not less. And of course, all of that, this is all phooey on much of the silliness of the modern art movement. And I don't mean abstract. I love abstract painting and love abstract paintings if they're good. But so I'm certainly, minimalism does not count. Most of the modern art movement stuff, by the way, it was very preacherly. They weren't the issue at hand was not visual aesthetics. It was socio-political commentary, and I actually believe that as soon as an artist decides to become a socio-political commentator, that's what they've become. They're no longer an artist; they're a socio-political commentator. And by their own admission, I'm trying to preach a message here, they say. So if you're preaching a message, what are you? You're a preacher. That's right. Or a propagandist or a politician. Anyway, that's as far as I'm going to go with that today. Other than to say, that's not what I do. I do paintings for your eyes. You supply your own message. I'm not trying to preach you one. Okay. So my oil glazes are done. Oh, nope. Second. Actually, almost done. I'm going to come back here now and actually wipe out a little bit that I just did. Rag out a little bit of what I just did in the warm stuff. Go back to a lighter color. Whew. Is everybody happy? Interesting. I could, if I were a different artist, I could actually call this finished, sign it, and say I'm done, couldn't I? I've been painting for about an hour, by the way, working on this painting for pretty close to an hour now. So that's pretty quick painting so far. But the slow stages is what's still ahead of me. And I'm trying to decide what to do next. I'm standing here with my chin in my hand, literally. Okay, I know. Here's what I'm going to do. I am going to do dark details in oil. And it goes without saying, doesn't it? But I'm going to say it, even though it goes without saying, that anytime you're doing dark on your canvas, you want any part of your canvas to be darker than it is, then you get dark with transparent colors. So I'm going to put out a little bit more liquid because I used everything up that was there. I used it up in the glazing stage. I'm going to go back to a purple, a violet to do some drawing with. You can draw with any color whatsoever. What makes it transparent is the liquid added to it. People sometimes say, what oil paints do you get that are transparent? No. It's not the paint that's transparent. It's the adding the medium to it. That's what makes it transparent. And I'm going to add a little bit of ultramarine, so it's a blue violet. Okay, and this might get just a little bit tedious for you guys. In which case I'll give you a little break, perhaps. Let's see how it goes, okay? By the way, here I am. I just decided to do a little bit more rag painting. Rag painting, you like that expression? It's more important that my marks be interesting than that they be accurate, and yet they need to be accurate too. One way to describe that might be to say I make the lines accurate, but then I mess them up, like that. See, what is that mark right there? It is actually nothing. It's not a picture of anything. It's just an expressive or abstract mark. Why did you do it? Because I thought the painting will look better with that abstract mark. I know that's kind of a smart aleck answer, but that's the best answer. And then if you can get more specific than that, you can say, yeah, it adds a little bit of energy to that area right there. And I felt like that little area right there needed some energy. Now, I can't say much more than that. It's very, very intuitive. As you all know, if you're a painter, most of what we do as painters is intuitive. You can't even exactly describe why it looks good. It just does. So my job as a teacher is to try to ferret out these mysteries of painting that are non-verbal, that are non-literal. It's just abstract. So that's what I did there. Why did I make that mark? Because it made the painting better. Why? Not sure. I think it was because it added some abstract energy. Whew. That's a pretty lousy answer. That's the best I can do. Let me zoom in here a little bit more for a while so perhaps you can follow what I'm doing a little bit better. Once again, I am not beholden to my previous lines. Like, in fact, right here, I'm actually modifying a line that I had drawn earlier. Make corrections all the way along, all the way through the process. That was a lot of scratching. Let me show you a little bit what you can do. I like it, but there's just a little bit too much of it. So watch, with a soft, clean brush, I just come in here and smoosh out some of what I just did. Now that much I like. Okay, real fun trick. After you've done glazing, the whole painting has, except where I ragged it out, the whole painting has a layer of color on it, right? Which means it's pretty easy to come in and scratch stuff. I'm adding some oxide red to my purple right now because I realize up here in this roof area I want a more neutral tone, not so purple. Okay, back to blue tones. Yeah, let's do some of these windows now. I keep changing my mind about what color I want. I did blue and then I added brown back into it. Okay, so dark stuff. At the end of this stage of the painting process where I'm doing dark, transparent details, my painting should have all the darks in place. It shouldn't be getting any darker than it is when I'm done with this. Now, of course, I'm allowed to make mistakes and at a subsequent layer go, oh, you know what? I need some dark in here or there. I can do that, but my goal, nonetheless, is to get everything as dark as it needs to be in this stage right here. So when I'm done with this phase, I want all of my darks to be in place. I hope that's clear. And just a minute ago, I said, generally speaking, you want more color, not less, generally speaking. Likewise, generally speaking, you want more values, not less. You want a full range of values. Let me use a photographer, the champion of a full range of values, the god in the photography realm of full range of values. Who would that be? That's right, Ansel Adams. And by the way, even though he worked in the middle of the 20th century, he employed so many tricks to get his photographs to come out with those gorgeous black as black, midnight black, and white, and every shade of gray in between. That's part of the genius, not the whole thing by any means, but that's a significant part of the genius of Ansel Adams, is his value. So I'm just using him as an example of, generally speaking, our eyes like to see more, not less. In fact, that's one of the foundational principles of painting, the what I call the breakable laws of painting. You can break them, but you better know what the laws are before you break them. Otherwise, you're probably just screwing up. They say all the time. I'm coming out with a book. I know I keep saying that. The first chapter, and with footnotes, with endnotes, is complete, and I'm shortly going to be offering that here online for a very couple dollars, really inexpensive price, to start getting that material out to you. 26 pages it would be. And if you buy it, then you get a discount on the rest of the book as it becomes available. I don't know the details. I need technical help with all that. That's why it hasn't come out yet, because I need technical help. But I'm working on it. Okay, more. This, by the way, good trick for how to paint trees. The answer is layer by layer by layer. That's how you paint believable trees. One of the biggest mistakes made in all landscape painting is stick-ish trees. Trees with about 150 or so. That's an arbitrary number, but the student gets tired after a while, after 100 or so, and says, okay, that's good enough. And it looks terrible. Sorry to be so mean. So we don't want stick-ish, stick-y trees. We want trees that look like they have hundreds of thousands of branches without painting hundreds of thousands of branches. There's a very well-known artist, old artist in North Carolina named Bob Timberlake. And he's a hyper-realist. And he, in fact, does paint hundreds of thousands of branches. Last I checked, he was in the state hospital. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. Because you can drive yourself nuts trying to do that kind of detail. He is not. I think he's alive and well. um, again, focal point. The further I get from there, the more abstract and generalized I want everything to become. In visual art, the viewer loves being manipulated. The better, the more skillfully the artist manipulates the viewer, the happier, the greater aesthetic buzz the viewer receives. The more skilled the artist is, that means the more accurately and skillfully he or she has manipulated the viewer. And we love the manipulation. That is real visual art. Of course, has nothing to do with preaching sermons, socio-political commentary, and so forth. That's a completely different thing, and in my book, is not art. It's okay. It's just preaching. I've already said that today. I'll leave that right there. Okay, so I'm looking at my painting. Am I finished? I mean, with this stage. Am I finished with this stage? I'm very, very, very close. It looks like the White House. It looks like a painting of the White House. It does not look like a picture. Again, I'm mispronouncing the word on purpose, just to be irritable. It's a mnemonic device. We do not paint pictures. We paint paintings. At least on my planet, where I come from, that's our goal, is to paint paintings, not pictures. Yeah, I think it's working fairly well. And you could see the very first splash of purple that I put down here is still talking, still working. I am not going to cover that up. Oops. You know what? I've got a phone that's just about to die on me. Let me pause this real quick. Hello, welcome back. So I believe I've finished. Hey Jan, good point. I believe I've finished the dark layer. Let me take a last look and make sure I've got everything. Theoretically, this should finish the dark, but you know what? I don't. I want to come in here with something dark and make one of these tree trunks at least. This one over here, make it darker than it is. I don't want too much attention over here, but it does need to look like a tree in winter. So it's okay. A little bit in the distance. We don't even need to define what this is. It's just bushes or building or something far away. And a little bit of the same thing over here. A little bit of more dark in this tree mass over here. Going around the side too. Let's do this. Yeah. I'm sorry you can't even see that. I want to paint the edges again, so I don't need to pay for a frame just to sell it and have the buyer change out the frame anyway. So anyway, that's a losing proposition in my book, buying frames. Just dawned on me some scratching would be helpful in here. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm done with that. Now, the next layer, so I'm very close to the final layer. The final is the only one that I call not underpainting. Everything up to this point I call underpainting. I've got one more stage to go that could be called overpainting or underpainting, and that is the fuzz layer, the glow layer. Translucent, local color, soft edges. And I want to do a little bit in the sky up here. I want to do a little bit with this. Let's do this first. Whoops. So here, for the first time now, I'm putting white paint out on my palette. And as you know, this is white paint that's gotten hard. And it's not what I was going to say. There we go. As you know, this is my titanium white is almost always alkyd fast dry titanium white, so that I can do impasto thick painting and not have to wait 6 weeks for it to dry. I have not got 6 weeks to wait for my paintings to dry. I want them to get finished and get sold. So there you go. So glow layer, the fuzz layer, translucent, local color, translucent soft edges, making things glow. The first thing I'm going to do is do a little bit on these two windows that have up here, that have, you know, it looks like a bedroom. I have no idea where the bedrooms are in the White House. One of the general principles I'm modeling here is the principle of when you want something to look like it's glowing, generally speaking, paint the glow first and then paint the object. So in this case, I'm going to paint the glow first, and then I'm going to come back and paint the, you know, the window panes, the hard edges in the window that is making that glow. Do I want any reflection? I think I might be able to get away with some reflection down here. That'd be kind of fun. Now, do I want this same color anywhere else? In fact, I believe I do. There's a big light that hangs down in that portico thing. For some reason, in the photograph, it's not turned on, but I think it would make sense if it were turned on in my painting. So there you go. I think that's the only color I need. That. Now here's a very specific case. I have a little American flag up here. So this would be a good time to do some soft edge. Right now it's just completely blue. And of course I don't want it to look completely blue. When I'm done, I want it to look red, white, and blue on a cold winter day from a distance. So a little bit of a trick. How do you paint an American flag that looks like it's red, white, and blue on a cold winter day in a distance? Well, I'm going to say one of the things you can do is fuzz in some red to start with. That's fuzz. It expands, goes beyond the borders of the flag, goes right out into the sky. I'm getting some lint off. I don't know where that came from. Okay, so that's what I mean by fuzz. I've got a hunt. I don't know if these are taillights. There's nothing in the. There is a car parked in the driveway under the portico in the painting, but the lights are not on. There's no tail lights or anything. But just when I did that little bit of red up there, it dawned on me, oh, good, nice to have some red somewhere else, maybe down there. So maybe those will be tail lights. I'm really not sure. At this point, all it is a little bit of red. I think that's enough red. Now, let me go to the more pressing and important job, which is some blue sky. Phthalo blue. Very different from ultramarine blue. Phthalo is a warm blue. Oh boy. I did a video not too long ago about talking about the color wheel. Some people have grave confusion about it. Yellow and red are not the warm colors. Orange is the warmest color. In fact, yellow-orange is the warmest color. Therefore, straight across the color wheel from yellow-orange is purplish blue. That is to say, ultramarine blue. Therefore, ultramarine blue is the coolest blue. Some people think, well, wait, blue with a little purple in it, that means it has red in it. That means it's a warm blue. It is a cool blue because red is not the warmest color. Yellow, orange, yellow. Orange, yellow, orange is the warmest color, in my opinion. Then I had some really good, interesting conversation. The man never came back and finished his comments. he started comparing the warmth of a color wheel to the color spectrum of a physics class, and it was a new thought to me, pretty surprising because I actually deal with the color spectrum. But he was saying ultramarine oh, I can't remember, infrared, but purple was the coolest color. Ultraviolet maybe was the coolest color. But I think that's a different subject. If anybody out there is an expert, please leave some detailed comments on that. I don't think that the warm-cool conversation that artists have is the same as warm-cool of the color spectrum that chemistry teachers and physics teachers talk about. I think it's a different subject matter. Okay, so I'm trying to get some cool stuff here in this sky and soft edges. I sent cool. What I really mean to say is soft edges here in the sky. I'll come back in a few minutes with some hard edges, but for the moment, I'm trying to make sure I have enough soft stuff. If you watch me often, you've heard me say maybe too many times, it's almost impossible for a painting to have too many hard edges, soft edges. Almost impossible for a painting to have too many soft edges. Very easy, in fact, likely for a painting to have too many hard edges. So we want to make sure that our painting has lots of softness, and then we treat the hardness very, very carefully, very limited. So right now I'm trying to emphasize the soft edges everywhere. I'll come back later and do hard stuff. Right now, let's make sure we don't have too many hard edges. And again, I'm doing local color, so that means like the shady side of this portico up here. Of course, it's in the shade, so it's blue. It's a cool day. It's a blue sky. So this is all. And I'm using phthalo blue on my brushes, but my brushes are picking up other things, so it's becoming which is fine, which is becoming a dirty phthalo blue. I'm going to pick up some ultramarine blue here for a minute because I want to do some of the deeper shadows up under the roof of this portico. Again, mostly soft edges, mostly soft. Moment I'm thinking there's a car under here. I'm doing a little bit of automobile-ish shaped marks there. Something about that I don't like right here. Let's take off some of that. A little blue that I did on shady side of that color. I think that's better. Okay, just a little bit of medium. So I've got both blues on my brush right now, phthalo and ultramarine, and I'm picking up, of course, the dark stuff. So it's a very dirty blue, which is appropriate for just trying to indicate the shady side of stuff. Let's do over here. There's some snow on top of this bush. I don't know if you can tell there's a bush there. There's also a bush down here. Not going to make much of it, but just a little bit perhaps. Okay, I'm going to take a little break just because I need to gather my wits and think carefully about where I'm going from here. I'm pretty sure the next thing I'm going to do is actually going to be pencils. I usually use the pencils twice in each painting, and that will be the case here. I I did the pencil drawing so carefully the last time that it's sort of hung in there longer than usual. But now with the soft, fuzzy stuff I just did, I've obliterated 90% of the pencil. So I'm going to come back and do some more, and then go straight to the final stage of the painting, which is light opaque highlights, more hard edge. Okay, that's the only part of the process that I call not underpainting, which I think means overpainting. We don't use that term, and I don't know why. I think we should. Overpainting. So pencils next and overpainting. Quick little break. Thanks guys for watching. Wow, thank you for that. I took off my head. Uh, let me know. Forgive me. Let me know if this is okay now. Woo! Thank you, whoever let me know the sound was bad. Oh, I'm so sorry. I walked back in after getting a drink of water and going to the bathroom, back in here and did not put my headset back on. Woo! Is the sound okay now, Warren? Let me make sure. Okay, sorry. Okay, now, would someone let me know, is my sound good now? Whew, I'm so sorry about that, you guys. It's better. Okay, thanks, Toby. Woo! Sorry about that. Just absent-mindedness. I am not absent-minded, just my mind is very hard at work somewhere else, often, I've discovered. Okay, I'm even trying not to do it, and I'm doing too much dotty stuff up here. So let me soften some of this just a little bit. I like it okay here, but I'm getting carried away again. Maybe I can blend it. So Toby's the sound okay? Is it just better? Is it okay? I'm gonna leave this for a while, come back to that later. Thanks for watching, Toby. Thanks for helping me with technical stuff. Back over here to some lighter green stuff. Perfect as before. Thank you, Jan. Okay. I'll tell you what. Here's what I'm going to do, folks. Sorry about that. I'm going to take a break right here and fix my audio problems and then come back. Sorry for the break. Let's see if we can. Yeah, it sounds like popcorn. Okay, does it sound okay now, my friends? It may be that my battery is literally dying, in which case I would need to take a longer break to recharge my headset. If one of you will let me know shortly. Is the sound good now? If not, I did everything I could do. I unplugged everything and replugged it back in, which has to be done sometimes. Let me know if it's adequate. Should I just keep going or should I stop? I'm willing to do either one. And try to see your comments if they come in. As soon as somebody can let me know, is my sound okay now? I'm talking very softly. Maybe that's not a good idea. Let me zoom in here. I'll keep painting till I hear from somebody. So I've got a very pale blue. So here's this flag where I let the red bleed out from the American flag into the sky. That was very much on purpose. Very simple principle. Much better. Okay, thank you, Warren. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Sorry about that. Try not to let that kind of thing happen. Okay, here's a real simple principle. It is, our eye likes to see little bits of the object bleeding into the background and little bits of the background bleeding into the object. Now, normally the analogy I use for that is a red barn in front of a blue sky. And again, this is one of those, if you don't know this, you just don't know it. Once you learn it, you go, oh, then you can modify it, to taste. But here it is, if you're doing a red barn in front of a blue sky, believe it or not, the human eye likes to see little bits of the red that have escaped out of the barn into the blue sky. And conversely, we like to see little bits of the blue sky that have bled into the barn. Wow. So that's exactly what I did here. I've got red. I achieved that by scumbling messy red around that. But now I'm coming back with blue and sharpening up the edges, but not obliterating all that red. But you can still see there's red going out into the sky. Now you can ask me, why do we like seeing that? And at some point, I'm going to go, I haven't got a clue. um, all I know is that it's true. Now, you can ask me, well, who taught me that? And at that point, I'm going to start sounding a little bit arrogant because I'm going to say, nobody. Now, maybe if I'd had better teachers, I believe somebody would have taught me that. But 40 years of 40 plus years of painting have taught me most of these principles. I'm always open to learning more. Not just open, man. I'm desperate to learn more. I hope you are too. Every once in a while I have a moment of objectivity where I stand back and look at myself a little bit with more objective eye than normal. And one of the biggest surprises I get is like, my goodness, I'm going to be 64 years old in a couple weeks. That doesn't surprise me. And you take it a year at a time, so it sneaks up on you. In a way, it does surprise me. That's another story. But here's what does surprise me. I am so engaged in life. I have been saying for at least 15 years, maybe 20, that my goal is to be a good painter by the time I'm 70. And I am working pretty darn hard on trying to make that a reality. And what surprises me is like, wow, I'm going to be 64, and I consider myself to be on the uphill side of life. I say this because maybe somebody out there needs some inspiration. Man, I am, when it comes to art, I'm still the new kid on the block. I'm still on the uphill, trying to get better every day and every way kind of thing. And yet, a lot of 64-year-olds, like, they're thinking of folding up, cashing in, quitting, retiring, playing golf. Woo! I'm sorry. If you want to play golf with your life, go for it, man. But, yuck. I'm here to change the world. And the reason I say all that partly is because I don't think I'm supposed to be that much of an exception. I think cashing in at age 64 is a travesty. When I say cashing in, you know what I mean by that. Giving up, quitting, retiring. And anyway, okay, I'll get off my whatever that was. The good news is I'm full of life and working very hard. And when I say, by the way, let me just finish this. When I say I want to be a good painter by the time I'm 70, okay, most people, most people go, oh, Dan, you're already a good painter. No. Here's what I mean. Just in case you think I'm being humble or something, I am not being humble. I want to be, Richard Schmid. I want to be Edgar Payne. I want to be John Singer Sargent by the time I'm 70. Oh. You just thought I was being humble. I was being blisteringly arrogant, just in a different way. I want to be good. I want to be good. Okay, so and of course, the rational side of my brain says, that's ridiculous. You'll never be that good. And I say, okay, maybe not. But better to have aimed and failed than not have aimed at all. Shoot for the moon, and maybe I'll only hit the stratosphere. How about that? Shoot for the stratosphere, maybe I'll only hit the top of the highest mountain. Right? So aim high, and I guess I'm trying to be a little bit inspirational at the moment. Aim high. Let the chips fall where they may. Aim high. It's a good way to stay young, too. It's also part of the reason this afternoon I need to go out for a jog. When you get one body, you kind of got to take care of it. If I expect to be good by the time I'm 70, I also expect to be alive, functional. I keep saying I'm done preaching, and I preach on. Um, Real fun, favorite kind of thing to do here. This mullions, they're called. Funny word. Mullions in the window. A significant element, I think, in much architectural painting. I don't want to carry that too far, then. Become redundant. I got a dull blue in my brushes right now. And you see how I'm just painting little bits, leaving gaps, leaving the underpainting showing through the overpainting strokes. That is key. One that if you're new to this style of painting, you're probably going to have a hard time doing and grasping. You let as much of the underpainting peek through, show through, as much as you possibly can stand. You let the underpainting show through. So the more accurate, the better job you did with your underpainting, the more you feel comfortable letting show through. By the way, I'm working with a very inadequate palette knife at the moment. For some reason. Oh, wait, here it is. Nope. Here it is. Here we go. Okay, I didn't put out good enough search a while ago. Here's a kind of palette knife I should have been using for those long pieces. Let me switch them a little bit. Okay, I'm going to stop now with all this blue stuff. Again, there are 4 places to start on the final layer. The furthermost, that's the farthest away stuff, which is sky, which I did here. The other is some local color that needs fixing, which in this case was also the sky. But local sky, farthest away, sky, lightest, brightest, whitest, or focal point. Okay, so I've done the sky and the furthest away. That was the same thing in this case. I needed that blue there. It also happens to be the blue of the sky. And then I did some more blue down here. Let me stop because now I want to switch to the lightest, brightest, whitest. Forgive me. I know that it's because sometimes it's hard to hear exactly what I'm saying. What did he say? That you can't hear the difference between light and white. So I just want to make it real clear. We're talking about whatever is the lightest, brightest, whitest thing in the canvas, which is going to be the front side of this building, right? The front side of the White House and some snow. I don't know which snow yet, so we'll only know that as we proceed. Now, it just so happens that the lightest, brightest, whitest is also part of the focal point of this painting. So I'm accomplishing two of those options with the one layer. I know I want a white angle over here. I know I want some strong white details right there. I want it especially right here. And beyond that, I won't really know until I get that much accomplished. Hang on. My palette has gotten overly messy dirty. So I'm going to use a tissue to clean up a spot here. There we go. Okay. Zoom back in. Thanks you guys for watching. I appreciate it. I'm keenly aware of the fact that this is a slow, watching me paint is not rock and roll, is it? It is a slow pleasure, meditative. so it's a nice edge, and mess up a little bit of it to represent some of the branches that are coming from that. Now, this is a little bit unusual. I am using pure titanium white. That is unusual. The rule is don't do that. The rule is never use pure titanium white. But every rule could be broken if you know what you're doing, and I'm thinking, because this is such a cool subject matter, that I can get away with the coolness of pure titanium. Usually, almost always, I warm it up with just a touch of yellow ochre is my favorite for warming up. Just a little bit white. It's unusual for me to do such a cool painting. My paintings definitely tend to have a warm cast to them, and most good paintings do have a warm cast to them. For some reason, I felt like part of the charm of this scene is in fact the coolness of it, and then the few bits of warmth to provide a counterpoint to all the cool. Now, if there was ever a point of the painting process where the interesting mark principle is important, it's important all the way through, but in this point it is most important because these marks, unless I change my mind, these marks are final. There's nothing going on top of these. So they have to be nice marks. And scratching through that wet paint gives just a hint of perhaps of branches hanging down in front of the white building, which is exactly the kind of hint that I want to create. Okay, I stood back for just a second. I should stand back more often. Actually, one of the weaknesses of me painting with you guys watching me is because there's a camera rolling, I tend not to stand back, honestly, as often as I should. Not blaming you, that's my problem. I need to rectify that a little bit and make a point of stepping back more often, in spite of camera rolling. Try to remember to do that. For several years now, maybe 7 years, I'm thinking that this verbiage came consciously into my mind. My quest has been for my paintings to be more messy and more accurate, both. And that is what you're seeing. There's more mess everywhere on the canvas. And yet I want my drawing to be really, really believable. A believable rendering of the White House. Those two impulses are opposed to each other. More mess and more accurate. Those are opposites. Yeah. I've got an important phone call coming in, and I need to take a quick break and get this phone call, and then be back with you guys. Let me do just a little bit more. I'm sort of anxious to do this. Angle of light coming down on this wall right here. Again, an angle of light that is not in the photograph I'm looking at. But I believe I will win points, so to speak, emotional play of light points, if I include it in the painting. I made this part up. This will be echoed by the same angle over here. Okay, I'm going to take a real quick break. Sorry about that, and I'll be back in just a few minutes to finish. All right, welcome back. Thanks, you guys, for joining me. I appreciate it. And hey, if you like what you see and hear, then by all means, please, of course, subscribe if you haven't done so already. And please tell your friends about me, especially your artistic friends. I haven't started trying to make money on this channel yet, but that is coming soon. Not so as I'll continue doing what I'm doing here for free, but I'll be looking for ways to expand my services, of course. That was a little correction that you just saw me making right there. There we go. So you see, I don't know if I can zoom in a little bit. See that angle right there? Just our brain likes to see that kind of thing. Hard to describe why so much of what we do as artists is just intuitive. Difficult to put into words. Sometimes I sense impossible to put into words why human beings like this or that. The main thing is, as an artist, is to understand that human beings like to see this or that. And that's what my book is, The Breakable Laws of Painting, which I've not been able to work on much for the last month and a half. But I look forward to getting back to it very much. Again, using pure titanium white. Here. Which is against the rules, quote unquote. I will tell you that I've got a little bit of a safety net underneath me. If, after finishing this painting and looking at it with fresh eyes, like tomorrow or the next day, by the way, it should all be dry tomorrow, in spite of a little bit of thick impasto here, of course, because it's alkyd titanium white. When I look at it with fresh eyes tomorrow, if by any chance I decide the pure titanium white was in fact a mistake, I have a really nice safety net underneath me, and that is that I can come back tomorrow or the next day when everything is completely dry and do transparent glazes on top of everything. I could warm this up and then come back and just hit little bits, little highlights of lighter white. So that gives me a little bit of confidence that if I decide that pure titanium white is a mistake, I can change it on a subsequent day of painting. So at the moment, I don't think I'm going to find it visually problematic. At the moment, I'm quite liking it. So everything can change. You know, again, you give yourself permission. Paint with your eyes. I use that expression a lot. Not everybody not all students understand real quickly what that means. To paint with your eyes, it means you don't paint by rote, you don't paint by recipe, you don't paint by rules, you paint by looking. Like one of the classic examples in my classes, and now this has happened so many times that I've tried to mitigate it against it, but when we're doing the acrylic glazes at the beginning, and I'll say something like, okay, now take a yellow. Very often I'll say, take a warm yellow and do this glaze like this, that, or this or that. And I'll be using, indeed, a warm yellow, like an orange yellow. And then I'll look up and somebody in the class will have done what they thought I did, but they'll use a cad yellow, a lemon yellow, cad yellow light, and the color on their canvas is just like so far removed from the color that I demonstrated for them that it just boggles my mind. It's like, whoa, what you just did doesn't look anything like what I did. Does that give you pause? I don't say that. This is what I think. I keep my nice, friendly, poker face art teacher face on. But inside I'm going, what? Okay, so forgive me if some of my students are listening to me right now. I say, you do that with me? I don't know, maybe. But here's what's wrong, is that person was painting by following directions. In other words, their inner talk, their inner chatter went something like this. Well, he said paint yellow, so here's my yellow, and there you go. I just painted it because he said paint yellow. The same thing is true when, like online in particular, I find students of mine and students of others saying, now, what did you say was the recipe for that flesh tone? It was yellow ochre and burnt sienna and what? That usually means, it's all kinds of insecurities operating when that's going on, of course, but usually means the painter is not painting with their eyes. They're painting by rote, or they're painting by rules. They're painting by regulations, rather than just using their eyes. And matching colors with their eyes. Okay, enough of that. How did I get on that subject? I don't know. I'm liking, by the way, here, I'm liking the way this white just kind of fades out down here. And so I think I want to keep that fade thing going. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to do this or not, but let me take just a second to talk about spattering a painting. This is a winter scene, so, in a way it'd be kind of nice to have some snow falling, right? And one of the best ways to do that is to spatter it. Let me give you, this is real simple and real important, the rule, how to spatter. Ready? How to spatter. It's real simple. Now, you let the painting dry. Completely dry. Dry. So if that's 2 or 3 days, I don't mean cured, 6 months, but 2 or 3 days, so everything is dry, right? Then you mix up whatever it is you want to spatter. White, blue, yellow, green, whatever colors you want to spatter, probably with a big brush. I'll demonstrate this someday. I'm not going to demonstrate it right now. I just want to give you the main point. And you take your painting probably out in your front yard or your backyard, not on your patio, not on your driveway, out in the grass, and you lay it face up, it's dry, and you mix up what you think is going to make a good spatter, and you go, whack, F-W-O-K, whack, that's the sound of spatting, okay. Whack, probably this far away, and you look, and you see if you like the spatter you got. Now, I would say for me, it's like 25% of the time I like it. Most of the time I don't. but the painting's completely dry. So you take a rag, maybe with a tiny bit of Gamsol or trypanoid on it, and you wipe off everything you just did. You get the painting nice and dry again, and you do it again. You stand up, say, okay, number 2, let's try it again. Thwack. F-W-O-K. You got the point? That's how you spatter. I mean, if you spatter a wet painting, man, dude, you are screwed. It's just like, there's no way you can get that out of there. And spattering is really pleasant. Just one more thing about spattering, and I don't know if I'm going to get that on this or not. It just dawned on me this would be a good moment to talk about it because it's a snow scene. Spattering is one of those things, it's a lot of fun to do. And one of the laws of painting is if something is fun to do, be careful not to do too much of it because it's just so much fun. So most of the time when I'm spattering, 1 thwack will do it. At the most, 2. Okay, enough. Get off the spattering thing. Some of you are getting uncomfortable with my thwack word anyway. Okay, let's get back to painting. Now, the titanium white that I'm using right now is pure titanium white, no alkyd, no medium, no linseed oil, no nothing like that mixed in with it. It's just pure titanium, and that's why I use titanium alkyd white, because I want this paint to be thick and dry. In fact, I think I owe what's his name? Richard Schmid. Sorry, I owe Richard Schmid a little bit in this regard because I love the way his buildings look. And my buildings were never looking that way. His buildings look very sharp and crisp. His strokes are sharp and crisp. And I finally figured out and read his book, that he uses straight out of the tube, no medium. Because medium, of course, makes the paint softer and runnier. You get different kind of edges when you use a medium with your paint than you do when the paint is thick and hard, like straight out of the tube. So that's what he does, and it gives his. And I still haven't achieved what he does, but it gives his paintings, his buildings in particular, all of it, but especially I notice in the buildings, it gives his buildings a certain scratchy, hard edge realism. He uses his edges so perfectly. He's the first person I heard use the term edge control. Studied art for many years, never heard that word. Now I hear it everywhere. I'm not sure if he's partly responsible for the emergence of edge control or not. He might be. I don't know. Be that as it may. It means balancing, controlling hard versus soft edges. And again, the basic rule is too many hard edges, too many soft edges, not a problem. Now, here's where I didn't know how much white I was going to put down here in this lawn. I still don't know. I'm going to put down strokes and then measure, so to speak, measure visually, take a look and see, do I like what's happening? Actually, right at the moment, I wish I had slightly larger brushes, but yeah, I'm gonna pause and get a bigger brush. There we go. Sometimes I don't like to interrupt the flow to switch brushes, but this time I felt like it was worthwhile. Oh, so nice to be able to paint with two hands because this stroke needs to go this way. It would not be the same going the other way. I actually watched a video not too many months ago, a YouTube video where there's a paint instructor teaching, and he said, now, to do this line right here, you have to pick up the canvas and turn it upside down because he wanted a hard edge here, so he wanted a hard edge here, so he had to turn the canvas over so he could do a stroke like this. Foliage. Something happened to your arm? Hurt in the war, maybe? I'm being nasty on so many levels. It's not even funny. I'll stop. I say it's not funny, then I laugh at myself. But okay. The naughty side of me thinks it's funny. Okay, now I want this hardage to fade down. I want the snow to fade down slightly. I don't know how far. Okay, I'm going to mess up my white. I'm putting my brushes back in the pale blue stuff. So I'm going to leave the white for a few minutes because I'm not sure what I need to make happen in here. I know it needs to be quite a bit lighter. And this tree right here is almost inscrutable. Almost can't even see that it's a tree. So correct that a little bit. One of the things I am going to do, just haven't done it yet, by the way, is I am going to come back near the end of the painting process. I don't know if I can do it with small brushes or if I'm going to do it with palette knife, but I am going to paint some white snow on some of these branches so that it looks like snow-laden branches. I'm just letting you know that's in the back of my mind, but it needs to be done just about dead last. Okay, darken this blue up a little bit. Gets higher into the sky. So I've got one color blue here and another color here, and these two need to blend into each other. Okay, let me talk for a mention. I say this. Let me talk for a mention. Let me talk for a minute. I talk about this fairly often, but I know different people are watching all the time, so you may not have heard this. It's a painting principle. It's one of those principles. Well, here's how I introduce it. It's almost always a good idea to blank. Now, before I go any further, let me point out that there are not that many things in the world of painting, not that many things that you can say it's almost always a good idea to do such and such. But here's one, and it only applies to the opaque stage of the painting process. Now, those of you who paint in a traditional oil painting manner, that is to say opaque, then this applies to you all the time. But for me, it only applies to the final stage of painting. Okay, so when you're in the opaque phase, here it is. It's almost always a good idea, after having put down a certain color, to come back pretty much immediately, to come back and apply a slightly, and the word slightly is very important, apply a slightly lighter color on top of what you just did. Same color, just slightly lighter. And I haven't done any of that yet. Of course, with titanium white, all I could do is plaster some on heavier than that if I want anything lighter, or use a palette knife. But for all this other stuff, all the midtones that I'm going to be doing, which I'm doing right now is a midtone. It's not dark and it's not light. It's right in between. It will be a good idea to come back and apply a slightly lighter shade, lighter value, lighter color. And what I mean is basically the same color, just slightly lighter. Uh, why? Because it looks good, because it makes the painting look better. Okay, there's the technically accurate but cop-out answer. Why did you do that? Because it makes the painting look better. Okay, that's the answer to every question. But if you can give more details than that, hooray. Here's part of the answer then. Why? Why does it look good? The principle upon which that concept is based is this. I'll give you the fuller. The human eye we do not like to see dark paint on top of light paint. I read this, I worked through that in great length. I won't do it right now. We don't like to see dark paint on top of light, but we do like to see light paint on top of dark paint. So that's the broad principle. Our eyes are attracted to light, and for some reason, one of the practical therefores of that statement. Our eyes are attracted to light. Therefore, we like seeing light paint on top of dark. And if that's true, then you might say, well, then do we like seeing lighter painting on top of that? Paint on top of that? And the answer is absolutely yes. Now, if you follow that principle all the way through to its ridiculous end, then you would finish by painting everything titanium white. So, okay. So we're not talking absolutes here. We're talking relatively speaking. I'm fairly happy with what's happening here. Oh, by the way, so here I am violating one of the rules. The rule I just said. We do not like seeing dark paint on top of light, but here I am doing a medium dull blue on top of what was almost white. So this is a breaking of the rule. What am I going to do about that? Well, what I know, I'll do it right now, is that after I've broken that rule, that is, you see right here, let me zoom in as much as I can. Right here, I just put dark medium blue on top of white. We don't like that. But I can fix it because here's how. I'm coming back now with pure titanium white again and doing strokes. And this is keyword adjacent to, right next to, sometimes on top of the blue. Now, I don't mean completely obliterating the blue, just along the edges of what I just did. And now all is well. Our eyes are happy again. I broke the rule, but I fixed it by coming back and doing the rule, which is we like to see light paint on top of dark. Now, sometimes, I don't know if anybody's saying this, sometimes I hear students in my head going, well, that's just your opinion. That's just crazy. I didn't hear that from Dr. Schnozelgrass when I got my MFA at the University of Hoosetsville. He never said anything like that. I think you're wrong. And you can think that if you want, but I can point at your painting and say, that mark right there, that's ugly. So I would recommend considering these laws very carefully before you dismiss them. Then you dismiss them after you try them, okay? And then if you decide I'm wrong, then of course, and I know that I'm not right about everything. That's one worth giving serious consideration to. Okay, I'm actually going to take a little break. This last stage, even though I'm only going to cover, I think, 15% of the canvas with paint, it's the most tedious. It's the slowest step, and a little bit too slow for you guys to watch. So I am going to turn you off for a while. I'm actually going to sit down because my legs are getting tired. You can only paint as much as your legs can handle. And I'll bring you back in a little while, okay? So it's going to continue to say that this episode is still streaming, of course, even though it's not, until I hit the little stop button. It'll keep saying that. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for joining me. And again, if you like it, please like it. And if If you haven't subscribed, do so. Appreciate it. I'll be back in a little while. Thanks. Bye-bye. Whoa! Oh my goodness. There's a first. Ugh. How are you doing, everybody? You just went flying, and I hope my camera's all right. I think it is. First time for everything. Okay, there you go. You just took a mighty spill. Wow. Is everything okay? I think so. Thanks. Oh, now you know what my ceiling looks like. Okay, let's finish this painting up as quickly as I can. I'm very nearly finished. Couple surprises since you left. One is the zoom in a little bit more. The uplights on the warm uplights on the building here have taken on a life of their own, which I like. It gave me a good excuse to introduce a nice warm alternate warm tone to the painting in a very natural way. So I'm happy with that. And the car has, yes, ended up looking like a car. So indeed, that's what that is. Now, I don't think I've ever done this before, but these pillars have odd bulges in them. I'm thinking I might just be able to just straighten them out with a straight line with a ruler. As long as I don't slide my ruler around when I've got it on there, I think I'm okay. Again, I don't think I've ever done this before, ever. Maybe I'm forgetting though. Just a hint of straightness. All right, just a few things left to do. One of which is do this flag. Let me see if I can get you in any closer to the flag. Hang on, bear with me for a minute here. Okay, so as you can see, I hope you can see, it's got just a hint of red on it. I'm going to come in here with a more intense red. Mostly just scribbling it in, not trying to do stripes, just filling in that area. That's good enough. Now, I love doing American flags up close. It's a lot harder doing them when they're far away. Capturing just the right level of abstraction. And can you see stripes from this angle, from this distance? And the answer is yes. In the photograph that I'm looking at, you can definitely see stripes. So I want to try to indicate stripes without rendering the heck out of them. Hello, Edward. Cheat away, my friend. That's funny. Okay, I'm gonna stop there, and that might be enough. And now come in with some dirty white, off-white, cool white. I'm still mixing up trying to get the color I want here. Okay, and once again, to me, one of the secrets of doing stripes on the American flag is not drawing stripes, but going cross grain to the stripes. That is, you can see I'm probably done right there. That's probably it. I'm going to come back with just a few hits of brighter red, just a few little bits of brighter red, and then a few bits of brighter white, and that'll be it. Okay, red right here at the edge. kind of a bright orange red, a little bit right here. See, I'm painting in rows. I'm not painting this way. I'm painting this way. I hope that makes sense to you. Okay, that's enough of the bright stuff. Now, one more hit with a lighter, white, off-white, lighter than what I used a few minutes ago. See, one of the things that keeps me from getting too crazy with it is the compared to what I'm painting, the fat brush, right? If I were to get out a number a zero, double aught, triple aught sable brush and try to paint stripes, I would be way over the line. That's probably good enough. Let me do a tiny bit of darker blue up here, and then a dot or two of star. And if I can scratch, that'd be even better. Oh yeah, there we go. Just a couple scratches. And then maybe one dot only, maybe two. 1, 2, good enough. Okay, so that's a flag. It's pretty prominent in the painting, but I knew it would be, and it's pretty prominent in the photograph too. I think I'm ready to leave that, and I might be done. Let me back up so you can see the whole painting here. I'm definitely at the point where I would like to look at it with fresh eyes tomorrow. And if I want to make any changes, make it. Oh, I know. No. Hang on. One more thing to do, and that is some white snow in some of these branches. Now, which branches? That is the hard part. And for this, I am in fact going to mix some liquid with my white so that it flows a little bit. And probably even dip my brush one time in the Gamsol, Terpenoid, whatever that is, so it runs a little bit. I'm still using a bristle brush, not a sable brush. Okay, quiet. See, is that enough? Can you see that? Can you see that? That might be enough right there. Whew. Okay, now what about over on the other side of the painting? Yeah, just a little bit. I find too many times students, I guess it's brushmanship. They don't know, they really don't understand how to handle a brush. Um, can you see the light touch that I'm using? Um, I don't brush the paint onto the canvas. If I did, with a brush this size, I'd be making a mark roughly a quarter of an inch thick, which would be absurd, of course. In fact, I see this kind of thing a lot. So I don't think of it as brushing on the canvas. The brush is simply a conveyance tool. It's a backhoe, I like to call it. It's just for putting paint on the canvas. The paint touches the canvas. I'm going to exaggerate slightly here. The paint touches the canvas. The brush does not. Now, of course, the brush, in a sense, is touching the canvas, but there's no pressure of the brush touching the canvas. Of course, again, I'm not speaking like a physics professor. If there's no pressure, there'd be no contact whatsoever, but in the usual sense of the word, no pressure. A little bit of scratching. When in doubt, scratch. Okay, I think that's it. I think I'm done. I'll look at it tomorrow with fresh eyes and see if I still feel like I'm done. I say that, of course, and then I continue to mess with it. Yeah, I saw some of these, the lights, the tail lights on this car needed some work. There we go. Ooh, that was too much. There we go. Whew. Okay, I will post the finished piece on YouTube Community. If you're subscribed to me, that should come up in your subscription feed, so you can see a lot better what it looks like when I do that. Okay, thanks you guys. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. And subscribe, and you know all the routine. Hit like. Pretend you like me if you don't.